Good evening to you, Simon. I understand that Donald Trump has already spoken. Is this the official kickoff of the Republican convention, or is he speaking ahead of it?
He has, and it is, Sally, and the reason why I'm laughing is because after speaking for nearly an hour to delegates at the Republican National Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina, who had just formally renominated him as the party's presidential candidate for this November's election, he was played out of a rambling hour-long news conference, rather curiously, by the Village People and YMCA. I have absolutely no idea why that was the song of choice on this particular day, but I mean, we've just watched literally a tsunami of lies and falsehoods from President Trump over the last hour. There is no other way of describing the comments that he's just made, but he was cheered to the rafters by people in the room. 4 more years, they said, when he vowed never to allow America to become a socialist country. Hallelujah. One man could be heard in the room shouting in President Trump's direction. He insisted that the Democrats are using COVID-19 as an excuse to steal this election. He says that the Democrats are planning postal voting on a widespread basis this November because he says they know that in every American election millions of votes are fraudulently cast by post. It is important to underscore the fact that factually that is not accurate at all. But he said the Democrats are going to use postal voting instead of in-person voting to steal the election. It's going to be rigged. It's going to be the biggest political scandal of all time. And by that, he said, he was including the rest of the world, not just the United States. And I've got to tell you, Sally, it was only on Saturday that President Trump claimed that at this convention, and he's going to be speaking, we're told, every single day, including Thursday when he makes his big speech at this convention, but we were told he was going to strike a positive, inspirational and uplifting note. Well, he certainly didn't strike that over the last hour.
And are they also holding a virtual conference? I mean, I know that it's unusual for the president to be speaking every night. As you say, it's normally only right at the end. But is the conference for the Republicans also being held virtually?
Yeah, so this is a 4-night affair with the actual convention business happening in person in Charlotte, North Carolina, dramatically scaled down, only about 300 delegates there versus the tens of thousands of people that were expected to descend on the city. But they've got some business to do, which is what they've been up to this morning, renominating Donald Trump for president, renominating Vice President Mike Pence as his running mate. They are not, we're told, going to be writing a new manifesto for the 2020 election. Rather, they're going to run on the 2016 election platform, which is very unusual. Indeed, I think absolutely unique in American presidential history, but an indication the Republicans' critics suggest that even the Republican National Committee itself doesn't know precisely what is in Donald Trump's mind for another 4 years in office. But the primetime programming begins here tonight. 4 nights of it. Most of that will be virtual, including President Trump's live big speech on Thursday, which he'll be making from the White House.
You know, someone who has been one of his most loyal defenders, Kellyanne Conway, she is leaving the White House. Her husband, who is well known as an anti-Trump Republican, he's also stepping back from his job with the Lincoln Project. Is that a big blow for Donald Trump coming just a couple of months before the election or not?
Well, I think it is a blow, I mean, without question, because Kellyanne Conway has been at his side throughout the 2016 election and throughout his first term in office at the White House. What has happened over the last 3 days is that this very tense relationship between Kellyanne Conway, the most slavishly loyal supporter of President Trump, and her husband, George Conway, the most ferocious critic of President Trump from the Republican side of the aisle. They have both been basically accused by their daughter, 15-year-old Claudia Conway, of engaging in abusive parenting. She took to Twitter to say she was stunned and disappointed to discover that her mother was planning to address the Republican convention, that she wanted emancipation from both of her parents, and indicated that life behind the closed doors of the family home had not been particularly enjoyable and not been particularly tranquil. So everyone's gone off Twitter. Kellyanne Conway's gone radio silent. George Conway says he's not having anything more to do with the Lincoln Project, that group of disgruntled Republicans that are campaigning actively for Joe Biden to win the election this November. And Claudia Conway, their teenage daughter, has also decided to stop tweeting for a moment while the family concentrates on the family. But for Donald Trump, not having Kellyanne Conway's advice available to him on a continuing hourly basis is going to represent a very major change, and it will be interesting to see whether her departure from this White House is final or whether, having fixed things at home, she then decides to try and head back into the president's orbit.
Nothing like a 15-year-old to shake things up. Simon, I do have to ask you about this very distressing news about these two Wisconsin police officers we understand are believed to have opened fire on a black man, Jacob Blake, as he was getting into his car in front of his 3 children. Now, we understand that he is fighting for his life in hospital. Can you tell us more about this incident and what the political response has been, if any, at this point?
Yeah, this took place in Kenosha, Wisconsin at about 5 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. There was some sort of a domestic incident underway, an argument between 2 women. Police were called. Jacob Blake, according to bystanders, attempted to intervene and try and resolve the domestic dispute that was playing out on the streets of the city. He was wanted for arrest by police in connection with an incident in a local bar where he brandished a weapon, a gun, and threatened patrons back in July. So police, having realized who he was, then tried to arrest him. He would not adhere to their orders to surrender. He made his way to his car where his 3 young sons were sitting on the back seat. He opened the driver's side door. Police, we believe, thought that he was going to reach for a weapon inside the car, and as he leant in with his back to them, one police officer fires 7 shots into Jacob Blake's back. He is now, as you said, Sally, fighting for his life in hospital. This, of course, has once again galvanized the Black Lives Matter movement. Even though Mr. Blake had a lengthy criminal record, they, of course, are arguing that the treatment meted out to him was brutal and unnecessary, and that it must have been possible to find other ways to impose the arrest warrant. The fact that this has happened on the eve of the Republican convention getting underway is going to make the whole issue of police brutality and the treatment of particularly African-American offenders at the hands of white police officers very voluble as we head into this convention week.
Thank you very much, Washington correspondent Simon Marks.